For years, you've likely told yourself that the leaden heaviness in your legs, the swelling at your ankles, or those sharp midnight cramps are just normal parts of aging, a simple tax we pay for a long life. But I want you to pause that thought, because accepting persistent discomfort as normal is often the most dangerous mistake we make. Think of your circulatory system like the plumbing in a historic home. A slow, hidden clog creates immense pressure long before the pipe actually bursts. In my time as a doctor, I have seen too many patients ignore these whispers from their bodies, only to end up in my care when those whispers turned into a life-altering emergency. The true threat isn't the discomfort you feel today, but the silent, cumulative damage that threatens to steal your ability to walk, drive, and live independently tomorrow. Fortunately, you still have time to strengthen your body's flow before a crisis strikes. Before we break down the solution, if you recognize these sensations, simply comment "heavy" or "clear" below. To truly understand why your legs feel heavy, why they swell, or why that nagging cramp wakes you up at 3 a.m., we have to look under the hood of your body's transportation system. I often tell my patients to imagine their circulatory system as a massive interstate highway network. In this network, you have two very distinct types of roads. First, you have the arteries. These are your high-speed expressways. They take fresh, oxygen-rich blood from your heart and pump it out to your fingers, your toes, and your brain. The traffic on these expressways moves fast because it has a powerful engine driving it, your beating heart. Gravity actually helps this process when you are standing up. It pulls that blood down to your legs effortlessly. But then, we have the return roads. These are your veins. And unlike the arteries, your veins have a much harder job. They have to carry the used blood that has delivered its oxygen and is now filled with waste products like carbon dioxide and lactic acid, all the way back to the heart and lungs to be recharged. The problem, specifically for the veins in your legs, is that they are fighting a constant, uphill battle against gravity. Every time you stand, sit, or walk, that blood has to climb roughly 4 or 5 feet straight up from your ankles to your chest. So, how does the body accomplish this anti-gravity miracle? It relies on a mechanical system that is brilliant, but unfortunately, prone to wear and tear as we age. Your body uses the muscles in your calves as a secondary pump. Every time you take a step, the calf muscle squeezes the veins, squirting the blood upward. But once the blood goes up, what stops it from falling back down when the muscle relaxes? This is where the gatekeepers come in. Inside your leg veins, roughly every few inches, you have tiny, delicate one-way valves. Picture these valves like a set of swinging saloon doors or a hinged trapdoor. When the blood flows up, the doors swing open. The moment gravity tries to pull the blood back down toward your feet, those doors act as a catch, snapping shut to create a seal. In a perfectly healthy system, this works flawlessly. The blood moves up, the door closes, and the blood holds its position until the next heartbeat or muscle squeeze pushes it higher. It's a step-by-step ladder climb to the heart. However, over decades of standing, sitting, carrying weight, or perhaps due to genetic factors, these delicate hinges can start to fail. We call this chronic venous insufficiency, or CVI, but you can think of it simply as a broken hinge. If the valve doesn't close all the way, a little bit of blood leaks backward. We call this reflux. Over time, that leakage accumulates. Instead of a steady flow upward, you get a pooling of blood around the ankles and lower calves. The veins begin to stretch out like an overinflated balloon to accommodate this extra volume. This pooling increases the pressure inside the veins, and that high pressure is exactly what creates that sensation of lead weights in your legs. You aren't imagining that heaviness. You are literally carrying around extra fluid weight that your body is struggling to lift. Now, if the problem were just heaviness or cosmetic spider veins, we might be able to live with it. But stagnant blood is dangerous blood. This brings us to the most critical concept I need you to grasp today, the formation of a thrombus, or a blood clot. We need to have a nuanced conversation about clotting because, in the right context, clotting is a miracle. If you are gardening and accidentally nick your finger on a rose thorn, you want your blood to clot. You need those tiny blood cells called platelets to rush to the scene, link arms, and form a plug to stop the bleeding. In that scenario, a clot is a hero. It saves your life. But inside your veins, specifically deep inside the legs, a clot is not a hero. It is a silent thief. When blood stops moving fast, when it pools because of those broken valves we just discussed, it changes its chemistry. Flowing blood stays liquid. Stagnant blood wants to turn into a solid. It's similar to how a rushing river stays clear, but a stagnant pond develops sludge. When the blood in your deep leg vein slows down too much, platelets can get confused. They start sticking together, not because there is a cut to fix, but simply because they are bumping into each other in the traffic jam. This forms a deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. This is a solid blockage inside the main highway of your leg. It acts like a boulder in the middle of the road. Traffic backs up completely. The leg may swell dramatically, turn red. This brings us to the most practical part of our discussion. How do you know if this is happening to you? Your body is an incredibly communicative machine. It doesn't just break down without warning. It sends signals, distress flares, long before a catastrophic event occurs. I want to walk you through the 7 specific signs that your venous system is struggling. The first sign is one we've touched on: heaviness and fatigue. I'm not talking about the kind of tiredness you feel after a long walk. This is different. Patients describe it as walking through mud or feeling like they have iron shackles around their ankles. It is a fatigue that sets in even when you haven't done much physical activity, and it typically gets worse as the day goes on. By 5 p.m., your legs feel significantly heavier than they did at 8 a.m. This is the direct result of gravity filling those veins throughout the day. The second sign is what I call the sock mark test. This is the classic sign of edema. When you take your socks off in the evening, do you see a deep indentation that stays there for minutes or even an hour? That indentation is telling you something profound. It means fluid has leaked out of your veins and is sitting in the fatty tissue under your skin. Your veins are so overpressurized that the water component of the blood is being pushed through the vessel walls, sort of like a soaker hose watering a garden. When you press your thumb into your shin and the pit remains, that is pitting edema, and it is a cry for help from your circulatory system. Third, we have the midnight cramps. Many people blame these on a lack of potassium or just getting old. While electrolytes matter, frequently these cramps are a circulation issue. Muscles need oxygen to relax. When you are sleeping, your heart rate drops and circulation slows. If your arteries and veins aren't efficient, your calf muscles start to starve for oxygen. They also fail to flush out lactic acid and metabolic waste. The muscle responds to this toxic environment by seizing up in a violent, painful contraction. If you are jumping out of bed to rub your leg at night, check your circulation. Fourth, look at the temperature of your skin. This can go 2 ways. If your feet are perpetually ice cold, even in a warm room, it often suggests the arterial highways are narrowed, and warm blood from the heart can't get down there. Conversely, if your calf is hot, red, and swollen, that suggests blood is pooling and creating inflammation in the veins. You want a happy medium. Your feet should act as a thermostat, not an ice block or a radiator. The fifth sign is discoloration, and this one often scares people the most. Have you noticed reddish-brown stains around your ankles? It looks almost like a rash, but it doesn't go away with lotion. This is actually a form of internal tattooing. When the pressure in the veins gets high enough, red blood cells are forced out through the vein walls. These cells die in the tissue, and they release iron. That iron rusts. The brown color you see is literally oxidized iron, rust, permanently staining the skin from the inside out. It is a sign that the high pressure has been there for a long time. Sixth, listen to the neurological protests. This manifests as tingling, numbness, or that annoying pins and needles sensation. Your nerves are very sensitive divas. They need a perfect supply of oxygenated blood. If circulation is poor, the nerves start to misfire. This isn't just a spine issue. It's often a vascular one. Finally, the seventh and most visible sign, slow healing. If you get a small scratch on your shin or ankle and it takes weeks to heal, or worse, it starts to get bigger and turn into an open sore, an ulcer, this is a red alert. Healing requires massive amounts of energy and oxygen. If the roads are blocked, the construction crew can't get to the site to fix the wound. This is the point where medical intervention becomes absolutely mandatory to preserve the limb and become hot to the touch. But the immediate pain in the leg, as frightening as it is not the ultimate danger. The nightmare scenario, and the reason I am so passionate about early prevention, is if a piece of that boulder breaks off. If a fragment of the clot detaches, the blood flow sweeps it upward. It travels through the widening veins of the abdomen, passes through the heart, and then gets pumped directly into the lungs. This is a pulmonary embolism. Suddenly, the main oxygen supply to your body is blocked. It can happen in an instant, often with very little warning other than sudden shortness of breath or chest pain. This is why we cannot ignore the early signs of poor circulation. We want to keep the blood slippery and the roads clear so that a traffic jam never turns into a crash. Now that we have faced the reality of the problem, we need to talk about solutions. And while there are many pharmaceutical interventions for severe cases, I want to focus on a natural powerhouse that has been shown to support vascular health in a fascinating way: vitamin E. I want to be very clear. I am not suggesting vitamin E is a magic eraser that will vanish a massive clot overnight. If you think you have a DVT right now, you go to the ER. But for long-term maintenance and prevention, for keeping that interstate system smooth and flowing, vitamin E acts as a vascular shield. It works through 3 specific mechanisms that directly address the problems we just discussed. First, vitamin E is the ultimate antioxidant guardian. Think about the inside of your blood vessels. Over time, factors like high blood sugar, smoking, or just plain aging can cause oxidative stress. You can imagine this like rust forming on the inside of a pipe, or scratches on a non-stick pan. These rough spots are dangerous because they are exactly where clots like to latch on and grow. Vitamin E neutralizes the free radicals that cause this damage. It helps maintain the endothelial lining, the inner skin of your veins, keeping it smooth and slick. When the wall is smooth, cells slide right past instead of sticking. The second mechanism is the Teflon effect. We talked about how platelets can get confused and start clumping together to form a clot. Vitamin E has mild anti-aggregation properties. It naturally discourages platelets from getting too sticky. It doesn't wipe out your clotting ability like a heavy pharmaceutical blood thinner might, but it provides a gentle, natural resistance to clumping. It's like coating the platelets in Teflon. They bump into each other and slide off rather than locking together. This helps keep the blood flowing freely, even when it has to move uphill against gravity. The third mechanism is vasodilation. This is a fancy medical term that simply means widening the road. Vitamin E helps the body utilize nitric oxide, a molecule that tells the muscles around your blood vessels to relax. When these vessels relax, they open up wider. Imagine widening a 2-lane road into a 4-lane highway. The pressure immediately drops. The flow improves. By gently encouraging this expansion, vitamin E helps lower the resistance your heart has to pump against, ensuring that oxygen-rich blood reaches those cold toes and that the heavy, waste-filled blood can exit the legs more easily. By understanding these mechanisms, we move from fear to empowerment. You aren't helpless against the aging of your veins. You understand the highway, you recognize the traffic jams, and now you know one of the key nutrients that helps keep the road paved and the traffic moving. Now that we have established vitamin E as a crucial ally in the fight against clots and poor circulation, the immediate instinct for many of us is to drive to the nearest pharmacy, walk down the supplement aisle, and grab the bottle with the highest milligram count. I need you to resist that urge. In my practice, I have a strict rule that I share with every patient who sits across from me. We adopt a food-first strategy. The philosophy behind this is rooted in how your body has evolved over thousands of years. Your digestive system and your cells are designed to extract nutrients from complex food matrices, not from isolated chemicals synthesized in a lab. When you eat a nutrient in its natural form, it comes packaged with a host of cofactors, enzymes, fiber, and other micronutrients that help your body absorb and utilize it safely. Nature is a brilliant chemist. She rarely puts a high concentration of a powerful substance into a food without also including the necessary safety buffers. Furthermore, synthetic vitamin E often contains only one specific type of the molecule, usually alpha-tocopherol, while ignoring the other members of the vitamin E family, such as gamma-tocopherol and tocotrienols, which are equally important for heart health. By relying solely on a pill, you are listening to a solo violinist when you should be listening to the entire orchestra. Therefore, before we ever discuss supplementation, we must maximize your dietary intake. I have compiled the top 7 US-friendly sources, foods you can find in any grocery store from Florida to Washington State, that will act as your daily medicine. At the very top of this list, the undisputed queen of vitamin E is the humble sunflower seed. It is astonishing how much power is packed into these tiny kernels. Just a quarter cup of dry roasted sunflower seeds provides nearly 50% of your daily recommended intake. I often tell my patients to keep a jar on their kitchen counter. It's not about sitting down and eating a bowl of them. It's about integration. Sprinkle them over your morning oatmeal, toss them into a lunchtime salad for a bit of crunch, or stir them into yogurt. They are inexpensive, shelf-stable, and arguably the most efficient way to boost your levels. However, a word of caution: opt for the unsalted variety. We are trying to help your blood pressure, not spike it with excess sodium. Next, we have the almond. If sunflower seeds are the queen, almonds are the reliable giant of the nut world. They are incredibly dense in antioxidants. A small handful, about 23 almonds, gives you roughly 37% of your daily vitamin E. But there is a trick here. You must eat the skin. The brown skin of the almond is where the vast majority of the flavonoids reside. These flavonoids work synergistically with the vitamin E in the meat of the nut to prevent the cholesterol in your blood from oxidizing. If you buy blanched almonds, the white ones with the skins removed, you are throwing away half the medicine. I recommend these as your mid-morning bridge snack. When you feel that 10:30 a.m. hunger pang, skip the cracker or the cookie and reach for the almonds. The healthy fats will also keep you satiated until lunch, preventing blood sugar spikes that damage your veins. Third on our list is the hazelnut. While slightly harder to find than almonds, they are worth the hunt. Hazelnuts offer a unique profile of copper and manganese, alongside vitamin E. I love recommending hazelnuts because they pair exceptionally well with dark chocolate. And yes, you heard me right. A doctor is telling you to eat chocolate, provided it is at least 70% cocoa. Dark chocolate is rich in flavonoids that improve blood flow, and when you combine it with the vitamin E in hazelnuts, you create a circulation double win. It feels like an indulgence, but functionally, it is a vascular support strategy. We must also talk about cold-pressed oils, specifically wheat germ oil and high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Wheat germ oil is technically the most concentrated source of vitamin E on the planet. 1 tablespoon holds 100% of your daily value. However, it is delicate. This brings me to the raw use rule. Vitamin E is heat sensitive. If you take this expensive, high-quality oil and dump it in a frying pan to sauté onions, you are destroying the very nutrients you paid for. The heat oxidizes the vitamin E before it ever reaches your lips. Use these oils as finishing oils. Drizzle them over your steamed vegetables after they come off the stove, or use them as the base for a salad dressing. This preserves their chemical integrity. This leads us naturally to leafy greens, specifically spinach and broccoli. Now, on paper, greens have less vitamin E than nuts, but they are vital because of their volume and their additional nutrient profile, including vitamin K and nitrates, which help dilate blood vessels. The critical mistake I see people make is eating their spinach raw, with fat-free dressing. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. That means it acts like a passenger that refuses to get on the bus unless there is a seat made of fat. If you eat a bowl of plain spinach, you absorb very little of the vitamin E. You must add a healthy fat. Steaming the spinach and adding that drizzle of olive oil we just discussed unlocks the nutrient, allowing it to pass through the intestinal wall and into your bloodstream. Speaking of perfect packages, we have the avocado. This fruit is a geological marvel for nutrition because it contains the vitamin E and the healthy monounsaturated fat required to absorb it, all in one wrapper. It requires no pairing. It is complete. Half an avocado a day not only supports your vascular walls, but also helps manage cholesterol levels, keeping the sludge out of your pipes. Finally, we cannot ignore fatty fish like salmon and trout. While they are famous for omega-3s, they also provide a respectable amount of vitamin E. This combination is potent because while vitamin E protects the vessel walls, omega-3s reduce the inflammation in the blood itself. It's a two-pronged attack on poor circulation. Aim for 2 servings a week, baked or poached, never deep-fried. I am going to shift gears now, and I need you to listen closely because this is the most important segment for your immediate safety. In the world of medicine, we have a saying, the dose makes the poison. This is profoundly true for vitamin E. Because vitamin E is good for preventing clots, people assume that more must be better. If 15 milligrams is good, surely 1,000 milligrams is fantastic. Absolutely not. This is dangerous thinking. Unlike vitamin C, which is water-soluble and gets flushed out in your urine if you take too much, vitamin E is fat-soluble. It gets stored in your liver and your fatty tissues. It accumulates. If you aggressively over-supplement with synthetic vitamin E, taking high doses like 400 IU or more daily without a deficiency, you risk tipping the scales too far. You can thin your blood to the point where it loses the ability to clot when it needs to. This increases the risk of a hemorrhagic stroke. Remember, we want to prevent ischemic strokes caused by clots, but we do not want to induce a hemorrhagic stroke caused by bleeding in the brain. There is a Goldilocks zone, not too little, not too much. This danger is multiplied tenfold if you are already on pharmaceutical blood thinners. If you are taking warfarin, Coumadin, Xarelto, Eliquis, or even a daily baby aspirin prescribed by your cardiologist, you must be incredibly careful. These drugs are powerful. They are already aggressively keeping your blood thin. If you add high-dose vitamin E supplements on top of them, you are double dipping. You are effectively removing all the safety stops in your clotting system. A minor bump on the head that should be a bruise could turn into a brain bleed. A stomach ulcer could become a life-threatening hemorrhage. Never start a vitamin E supplement if you are on blood thinners without the explicit written approval of the doctor who prescribes your medication. Food sources are generally safe because you simply cannot eat enough spinach to overdose, but pills are a different story. There is also the surgery rule. If you are scheduled for any procedure, whether it's a major hip replacement, a cataract surgery, or extensive dental work, you must stop all vitamin E supplements at least 2 weeks prior. Anesthesiologists and surgeons are terrified of patients who hide their supplement use. On the operating table, we need to be able to control bleeding. If your blood is saturated with blood-thinning supplements, surgical bleeding can become uncontrollable. Please, be honest with your surgical team. Tell them everything you are taking, even if it's just a vitamin. We have spent a lot of time talking about vitamin E as the captain of the ship, but no captain can sail the ocean alone. Your circulatory system is a complex environment, and for vitamin E to do its job of protecting your vessel walls, it needs a support crew. If you are deficient in these supporting players, vitamin E becomes significantly less effective. First, let's introduce the wall repairer, vitamin C. You might think of vitamin C only for the flu, but it is actually the primary building block of collagen and elastin. Your arteries and veins are not rigid pipes. They are flexible, living tubes made of collagen. If your collagen is weak, the veins stretch, sag, and leak, leading to varicose veins and edema. Vitamin C builds the structure that vitamin E protects. Furthermore, there is a beautiful chemical handshake that happens between these two. When vitamin E fights a free radical, it gets used up or oxidized. Vitamin C has the unique ability to recharge that used vitamin E, recycling it so it can go back to work. You need citrus fruits, bell peppers, and strawberries in your diet to keep your vitamin E active. Next, we have the flavonoids. Think of these as the structural reinforcements or the steel beams inside the concrete. Flavonoids, found in dark berries, onions, tea, and apples, help reduce the permeability of the blood vessel walls. They make the barrier tighter so fluid doesn't leak out into your ankles. They also reduce inflammation. A diet rich in colors, blues, reds, purples, ensures you are getting these structural reinforcers. We must also talk about magnesium. If vitamin E makes the blood slippery, magnesium makes the pipes wider. Magnesium is a natural muscle relaxant. Your arteries have a layer of smooth muscle wrapped around them. When you are stressed or magnesium deficient, that muscle clenches, narrowing the artery and raising your blood pressure. Magnesium helps that muscle let go, allowing the vessel to dilate. This reduces the pressure against which your heart has to pump. Green, leafy vegetables, nuts, and seeds are, fortunately, rich in both vitamin E and magnesium, giving you a synergistic effect. Finally, the most overlooked member of the team, hydration. You can take all the vitamins in the world, but if you are dehydrated, your blood will be thick and sludge-like. Think of the difference between pouring water and pouring ketchup. Dehydrated blood is like ketchup. It moves slowly, it sticks to corners, and it is prone to clotting. As we age, our thirst mechanism blunts. We don't feel thirsty even when we need water. You must drink deliberately. Keeping your blood volume high and fluid is the simplest way to assist circulation. Water is the lubricant that makes everything else work. So, when are supplements actually necessary? In my practice, I reserve them for specific medical cases. Patients with Crohn's disease, celiac disease, or chronic pancreatitis often have malabsorption issues. Their intestines physically cannot pull nutrients from food efficiently. In these cases, high-dose supplementation is medical necessity, but it is done under strict supervision with regular blood work to monitor levels. For the average person over 60, the grocery store is your pharmacy, and your plate is your prescription. We have covered the chemistry of your blood, but now we must address the physics of moving it. You have a heart in your chest that pumps blood out, but you do not have a heart in your feet to pump it back up. Or, do you? In vascular medicine, we refer to the calf muscle, the gastrocnemius and soleus, as the second heart. This is not a metaphor. It is a mechanical reality. Every time you take a step, your foot hits the ground, and your calf muscle contracts. That contraction squeezes the deep veins in your leg, shooting the blood upward against gravity, past those valves we discussed earlier. When you are walking, your circulation works. When you are sitting, that pump is turned off. The blood sits stagnant. This is why walking is non-negotiable. I am not asking you to train for a marathon. I am asking for 30 minutes of rhythmic walking a day. It doesn't have to be fast, but it needs to be consistent. This engages the pump. If you have bad knees or hips, swimming is a fantastic alternative because the water pressure acts like a compression stocking while you move. But what about when you must sit? Perhaps you are driving to visit grandchildren, or you are on a long flight, or simply watching a movie. You must manually operate the pump. I teach all my patients the gas pedal exercise. You can do this right now while you are reading. Keep your heel on the floor and lift your toes as high as they will go toward your shin. You should feel a stretch in your calf. Then, slam your toes down and lift your heel high, contracting the calf muscle tight. Up, down, up, down. Do this 20 times every hour. You are manually squeezing the veins, preventing that blood from pooling and turning into a clot. On an airplane, this simple motion can be a lifesaver. We also need to use gravity as an ally rather than an enemy. This brings us to the elevation rule. Many patients tell me, Dr. Whitman, I put my feet up on the ottoman, but that isn't enough. For gravity to drain the fluid from your legs, your feet must be above the level of your heart. You need to lie flat on the couch or bed and prop your legs up on 3 or 4 pillows. Do this for 15 minutes at the end of the day. You will physically feel the relief as the accumulated fluid drains out of your lower extremities and back into circulation to be processed by your kidneys. Finally, look at your external factors. We need to avoid strangling the system. Tight socks with elastic bands that dig into your calf are tourniquets. They stop the blood from returning. Switch to diabetic socks or compression stockings that are measured for your legs. And of course, weight management plays a role. Every extra pound of abdominal fat puts pressure on the pelvic veins, acting like a roadblock for the blood trying to come up from the legs. Losing even 5 pounds releases that pressure and makes the job of your second heart significantly easier. By combining the food-first approach with these safety protocols, supporting nutrients, and the mechanical activation of your calf muscles, you are building a comprehensive defense system. You are not just treating a symptom, you are revitalizing the infrastructure of your body. You are taking control of your mobility, your independence, and your future. The greatest danger to your independence isn't the sharp pain you feel today, but the silent, cumulative blockage forming over years while you assume that heaviness is just the tax of getting older. If you have ever looked at your swollen ankles and simply accepted it, or rubbed a cramp at midnight without asking why, please understand, this is not negligence on your part. It happens simply because few people are ever taught to distinguish between normal aging and a circulatory system crying for help. But by being here, you have already changed the trajectory. You now know that your circulation is not a fixed fate, but a system you can strengthen starting with your very next meal. If you are ready to prioritize your flow over the quick fix, simply comment, "Food first," below. Consider subscribing not to support the channel, but to ensure you don't miss the next early warning sign that could save you a trip to the emergency room. Next, we need to discuss a daily habit even more common than sitting that is quietly straining your heart. I'm Dr. Eric Whitman. I say this only because I've met too many people who just wished they had started sooner.